This is an ongoing consultation, Senator.
I ask one last question, Mr. Chairman, fairly simple, this one. You testified last year that we'd work with the FBI, Justice Department on the continuing investigation into the Pan Am 103 bombing. Libya's ambassador to the United States has also assured me that his government will conduct a thorough investigation. Now, has any progress been made on the investigation of Pan Am 103 since in the last year?
Well, I think it's, it is fair for me to say that this is primarily a Department of Justice responsibility, but we've had intensive discussions with our counterparts in Libya. We've made it clear to them of the great importance of this case to the United States, our determination to bring those responsible to justice, and the investigation remains open. We are working to obtain new information. I think it's only in the last, few months that there could even be any assurance that we'd get answers because of the conflict ending, this new government trying to get into operation. But I want you to know, because of your deep interest in this, Senator, this is always at the top of my list whenever I talk with any Libyans.
Thank you.
Senator Brown.
Keep it there. Thank you.
And I thank you very much, Secretary Clinton, for joining us and for your outstanding public service for so many years. I follow on Senator Lautenberg's question on Libya. This is the 40th anniversary of the Munich Olympics massacre, where 11 Israeli athletes were killed. One of those athletes is an American citizen, David Berger from, I believe, Shaker Heights, Ohio, Cleveland area. I spoke with his 90-plus-year-old father last week. I know the department's working to compensate victims of Gaddafi's terrorism. Walk me through where things are with getting compensation and accountability for David Berger and his teammates, if you would.
I may have to take that one for the record, Senator, because, clearly we are pursuing a lot of the cases that we believe can be traced back to the Gaddafi regime. Some of those cases have been settled, and therefore there is no further litigation or negotiation to be pursued. I'm not familiar with where the specific case that you just mentioned rests, so I will get you information from the record.
And we will follow up on that and with some of the questions I probably won't have time to ask today on Syria, Sri Lanka, a couple other things. Last year's hearing, you and I had an exchange about the role that trade unions played in the Arab Spring, especially in Tunisia and Egypt. You suggested that we should do more to support trade unions around the world, much like we did in the 1970s and 80s with Lech Wałęsa and Poland's Solidarity Movement. In China today, as you know, workers continue to suffer from poor work conditions. We've read about and talked about the 700,000 workers for Foxconn and those related who make Apple computer products. And we hear much about many of these issues. A new generation of young migrant workers in China has grown more vocal in asserting their rights, including strikes at auto parts factories. While the auto industry, the auto rescue is working well in my part of the country, well beyond Ohio, but my part of the country, we know in terms of auto parts, we've seen from 2000 from PNTR till now about an 800% increase in our trade deficit, just unilaterally or bilaterally with China, an 800% increase in our trade deficit there. But more to the point, what can the State Department do to help workers in China increase their capacity to organize and protect their rights? What potential do you see in China and our role for it and our role contributing to it to increase democracy in the Chinese workplace?
Well, let me just make 3 quick points, because this is a very important issue. As I said last year, we've upped our emphasis on labor issues in the State Department. We have beefed up the personnel and the attention we're paying to labor issues. We are more actively participating in international labor meetings, because the United States believes that if we can put together a greater coalition of countries and trade unions who are concerned, we'll have more impact. Specifically with respect to China, the trends suggest that there will be increasing economic pressures on the Chinese business and government to be able to respond to working conditions, wages, and the like. And that if we just project out, a lot of that will come from people organizing. And we are very supportive of that. We think that, you know, workers organizing on behalf of themselves and having their voices heard is a critical component of real democratic development.
How does that manifest itself? If I'm a Chinese worker that's come from the countryside, as many do, to work in an auto parts plant in Wuhan or Xi'an, how do I know that the U.S. government really does care about that?
I'm not sure you would, because what we fund are lawyers who bring cases on behalf of people who aren't paid, who are made promises about working conditions that aren't fulfilled. It's a huge country. I don't think it's particularly broadly known that we are doing what we can through our democracy and human rights work to zero in on working conditions in China and elsewhere. So I don't know that the worker you're talking about would know it, but we're helping to create a body of law and expectations that will, I believe, eventually filter down to even that worker, that there will be, you know, a greater awareness of people's rights, as we're now seeing emanating from the village democracy movements where people are speaking out for themselves.
So talk to me for a moment along those same lines. When American elected officials or American officials, excuse me, meet with their Chinese counterparts, whether it's the president meeting with Vice President Xi a week or so ago, or when he met with a number of us in the Senate, are we bringing up, as the president, are you, are other officials, not very many senators are, frankly, and should be in my view, but there are other things to bring up too, so I'm not sitting in judgment of my colleagues, but are we bringing up those issues of worker rights in these bilateral private meetings? Can you assure me that we are?
I can assure you that we are bringing up human rights in every meeting with any Chinese interlocutor. That includes freedom of religion, freedom of expression, assembly, association, which certainly includes labor rights, organizing rights. In our human rights dialogue, in our legal experts dialogue, that is right up there with other areas of our concerns about human rights and their lack of definition and enforcement in China.
Okay, thank you. And I urge you, and I know your sentiments, and I know you want to, and I urge you to continue that and encourage you to send that through the administration, perhaps more than it's been. Last question I want to ask you about Somalia. Somalia is approaching 20 years as a stateless society. The Horn of Africa has become a target for those who want to cultivate vulnerable young people to a life of terrorism. Are you confident that the budget request gives you the tools needed to help in whatever way we can, especially if we see another famine next year like this year?
Well, I just attended a very well-organized conference on Somalia in London that the UK government put together. And I don't want to overstate it, but I think that we have a plan that's not just a U.S. plan, but an international plan. As you know, the U.S. is the largest humanitarian donor to the Horn of Africa region. That includes Somalia, where we invested $210 million in humanitarian assistance last fiscal year. We are encouraged at what we see in political development. We're encouraged in what we see as military success against al-Shabaab. The United States just supported an increase in AMISOM forces and funding that we're going to have to fund to try to finish off al-Shabaab in Somalia. And I think our assistance is yielding results. Now, our big challenge is on the political side. The transitional federal government has been given until August of this year to meet certain internationally agreed upon obligations to have a constitution, to have new parliamentary elections for a smaller, hopefully more effective parliament. And we're putting great pressure on the existing TFG to fulfill those promises. So conferences can come and go, but I think this particular one was set some very clear benchmarks on humanitarian relief, military, security action, and political reform.
Thank you. I will have additional questions on the global questions and inquiries with you on the Global Fund and Sri Lanka and Syria. So thank you, Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Senator.
Senator Durbin.
Madam Secretary.
Hello, Senator.
It is good to see you.
Thank you.
And thank you for what you're doing for our country. You've done two things recently that I want to make a comment on. I thought were very powerful and very important. Your statement about Russia and China failing to join us in the United Nations Security Council on what would have been a powerful statement against the killing, the wanton killing taking place in Syria was one of the best. There was no cloaking your feelings. You felt very strongly about those victims across Syria, and I think you were right to call Russia and China to task for what I consider to be I'll say this, an irresponsible position they have taken when it comes to the Syrian conflict. Thank you for that. Secondly, the situation in Afghanistan with the unintentional, though controversial, destruction of the Korans put you and the President in an extremely difficult position. You had to make it clear that it was something that did not reflect the feelings or values of this country, and you did your best to calm down the situation, as did the President. I think that was what leadership is all about. And when several political voices this last Sunday raced to the Sunday shows to be critical of those statements, they ought to talk to the families of the men and women serving our country in Afghanistan who want them to come home safely. What you said was the right thing for our country and the right thing for those families. So I want to thank you for both of those statements at the outset. May I speak to you for a moment about Haiti? Senator Leahy just returned with a delegation. I was there a few weeks ago. You have an abiding interest as Secretary of State and through your husband, former President, and the work that he's done. I feel disappointment. Gary Conille, the Prime Minister, for a few weeks only, is now gone. And President Martelli is looking for his fourth Prime Minister in the short period of time he's been there. There are so many things that need to be done in this impoverished country still recovering from an earthquake. But there's one in particular that I want to call your attention to. My impression in traveling around is, as you reported to Senator Brown, we do many good things around the world that the average person on the street never knows. We still do them because it's the right thing to do. There are things which we can and should do that really affect the hearts and minds of people. Port-au-Prince, an NGO named Geskio, G-H-E-S-K-I-O, a woman doctor, Deschamps, takes me on a tour and points to a piece of machinery on the ground. And she says to me, "This is our new well and water pump." We had to drill down 600 feet. We found clean, fresh water. We draw it to the surface, put it in a reservoir, treat it with chlorine, and provide clean drinking water to 120,000 people in Port-au-Prince. And I said, "Who paid for the well?" She said, "You did." The Paul Simon Water for the Poor program, which is funded at a very modest level, thanks to Senator Leahy, but enough. For $25,000, this well with clean water helped this group protect over 100,000 people from the threat of cholera. I said to President Martelli, "You could do this all over Port-au-Prince, and we can help you. For modest amounts of money, we can provide clean drinking water, which is a basic, as you and I have discussed many times." Tell me, as you look at Haiti and things like this, what are we doing that not only makes a difference, but may be appreciated by the people who live there?
Well, Senator, thank you for your opening two comments. I greatly appreciate both of them. And thank you for asking about Haiti, because we have been focused on Haiti even before the earthquake in this administration. And, you know, we've made a considerable investment that has produced results for the people of Haiti. We are well aware of the challenges that remain. But your question really goes to the dilemma we face in trying to provide assistance that produces results and that people know we're doing. You know, we do a lot to help people all over the world, that water well that you're talking about. But I'm still not satisfied that we do a very good job in conveying to the world what we do, what the American taxpayer pays for us to do. I'm not satisfied. I think that you know, there's so much that you can be proud of, and like you, I travel all over the place. I see the clean, you know, drinking water projects. I see the agricultural seed products. I see the maternal and child health clinic projects. I see all of this. But